Yeah, well, you brought up immigration there, and there was this the immigration policy that was leaked to the media a couple of days ago now. Have you got a thought on what that contained, or where you would like the coalition policy to be on immigration, and if it needs to be a kind of slash and burn job from the current levels that it currently is at?
Well, let's be honest, we've had mass migration for the last 3.5 years under Anthony Albanese. He's brought in 1.3 million people. That's a city the size of Adelaide. He's poured them in without even thinking about who he's bringing in and even the skills that we need. When we've got a housing crisis, all that does is fuel demand. These people have to live somewhere, so that pushes up prices and that puts young people out of hope of ever owning a home. So this is about making sure that we understand we're giving the greatest gift we can give to any person on this planet, a ticket to Australia. But we need to reduce the numbers. We need to be very mindful of who we're bringing in, not just in terms of skills, but the values that they bring to this country. Migration has built this country. We still need migration, and in regional areas there's skill shortages. But because we're giving that gift, we should be able to say who's coming to this country, their values, their skills, and where we want them to live and where we want them to contribute. And that's where we'll work through and have been working through the coalition. And now Angus and the new team and the Nationals will work through that to refine our position to make sure Australians understand exactly where our migration policy is.
So that leaked immigration policy, and it was part of Susan Lee's old team, but it identified 13 high-risk nations, and many, if not all of them, have security issues. Is that something that you think should be revisited in your next policy? Because as I mentioned, I mean, all 13 of them have problems.
Well, that'll be part of the discussion that the Shadow Cabinet and the National Security Team undertake. We'll work through that methodically but quickly in the sense of having an understanding. But that wasn't part of a broader Shadow Cabinet discussion that was put in front of everybody. So the reality is we'll work through this, and I think Angus has been very clear on that. We'll run the ruler over all the options, but the guiding principle is that we need to restore our way of life, and those that want to come to this country and disrupt that and destroy that need to have the door shut on them. And that's what Angus has been very strong and very clear on. And we're not against total ban on migration, but we need to reduce the numbers, and we need to be very careful about who we're bringing into this country.
Well, OK, on that note, and speaking of doors shut, the ISIS brides, there's about 34 Australians who are trying to get back home. The government says it is not helping. That doesn't mean stopping. Is there an inevitability, you feel, about their arrival back into Australia?
Well, this is where I think temporary exclusion orders should be explored by the government, and particularly with intelligence agencies. If these individuals pose a security risk to Australian citizens, then it's the Australian government's responsibility to impose those temporary exclusion orders from allowing them to return to Australia. We have a primary responsibility to keep Australians safe. And if the Prime Minister doesn't have comfort in that with the information he's provided, then he should pull that lever, and he should pull that lever quickly. The reality is he's already let a cohort in, and we need to understand their backgrounds, their participation in the Middle East, and what their individual circumstances are. Now, I think that's the prudent thing to do, but we seem to have a Prime Minister that's trying to play both sides of the fence.
How long would that last for, a temporary exclusion order?
Well, I think that comes down to the intelligence agencies and the information they provide. And I think it comes to the point where you can provide comfort to the Australian citizens that are here that they'll be protected. So there are boundaries around those temporary exclusion orders, and obviously the law protects that, but that law should be tested and should be used if there is a threat to the Australian people. That's just the primary responsibility of any Prime Minister.